Hello, welcome to our presentation about the Early Career Framework. It's really good to see so many people have joined, and we're just going to do a couple of introductions and then we'll crack straight on with the presentation. My name's Stephanie Bingham and I'm the Programme Director for NETSP, which is the North East Teaching Schools Partnership, and my main role is to lead on NPQs, which we deliver as a regional provider. As part of my role, I'm also the Regional Director for the UCL Early Career Teacher Consortium, leading NETSP's contribution to the Consortium's Early Career Framework Programme. I'm now going to hand over to my co-presenter, Linda.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Linda Turner. I'm part of the team at NETSP working on the Early Career Framework. However, my primary role is as an assistant head teacher, and one of my main responsibilities is overseeing the development of NQTs as a school induction tutor. So I have a vested interest in this programme, and one of the most important aspects for me is knowing that we have a practical and realistic application of the framework to use within our schools. We're going to switch off our video feed now so that you can concentrate on the information on the screen without us distracting you. And while that's happening, I'll just point out couple of things. You can post questions throughout the webinar using the chat facility. Could you please address those to Alice Lupton so that they don't keep popping up on the screen and again distracting us from the presentation? If you're using a mobile device, then there will be 3 dots at the bottom of your screen that will allow you to access the chat facility. So that's post the questions to Alice Lupton rather than to everybody, please. Time permitting, we'll aim to answer as many of those questions at the end as we can. If not, we'll send them out via email. We'll also send this presentation out to everybody via email, so we are saving you the job of making lots of notes. So on your screen, previous screen, we have broken the presentation down into just a few parts. Firstly, we're going to explain what the Early Career Framework is. Now, I realise that we are likely to have a mixed audience, so some will know as much as we do, and some of you will be completely new to this. We don't intend to go into a lot of detail here, but if you want more information, contact us afterwards. Secondly, we'll move on to the implications of the Early Career Framework in schools. Essentially, what does it mean for us now in schools? And finally, we'll tell you a little bit about the UCL Consortium and what its programme has to offer. Hopefully, all of that will allow you to make an informed decision about the Early Career Framework and which programme you want to participate in moving forward. Steph.
So we thought we'd start with a small background about the Early Career Framework. In February 2019, the Department for Education published its Teacher Recruitment and Retention Strategy, and the strategy identified a series of challenges to recruiting and retaining teachers. The second of these challenges is highlighted on this slide as Challenge 2, and it says that teachers at the start of their careers don't always get the support they need to build a successful career, and at the moment too many end up leaving. At the heart of the recruitment and retention strategy is a commitment to transform support for teachers at the start of their careers, and this is what the Early Career Framework has been designed to achieve. So this slide shows the rationale for the Early Career Framework from the Department for Education. The aim of the ECF is to improve the professional entitlement of teachers, providing them with the firmest foundations possible as they begin their careers, giving them the best chance to deliver excellent educational opportunities for their pupils. In a nutshell, under the Early Career Framework plans, the NQT period will be increased to 2 years, and a new detailed accompanying framework for that 2-year induction has been published that complements the teacher standards. All new teachers will work through this framework together with their mentors. It's important for us to stress that this is a developmental model. So the Early Career Framework is not something that the NQT will be required to produce a portfolio of evidence for. It is not an assessment tool, and it is absolutely not being recommended that it is used as an assessment tool. NQTs will still be assessed against the teacher's standards through termly reports, as currently happens in the NQT induction. And what you'll see from this slide is that it's important that the mentor's role is part of the early career development, and we will say more about that in a minute. So the early career framework has been written with two key strands of learning, the theory and the practice, learning about the theory behind it, or learning that, and learning how to do things. All effective pedagogy is underpinned by research, and our programme has been designed to break the theory into concise, manageable sections, followed immediately by practical exercises, which will enable the teacher to embed what they have learned into their planning and practice. In line with the framework, our programme is divided into 5 modules, and they are at the bottom of this slide. So the 5 modules cover behaviour management, pedagogy, professional behaviours, assessment, and curriculum. Now, the early career framework is going to be rolled out early in 2020. It becomes statutory in 2021, and the early rollout areas are listed on the slide in front of you. And as you will see, all schools in the North East are eligible to be part of the early rollout, which is fully funded. In order to get the funding, you do need to sign up and sign interest for the early career framework, and we'll say more about what that means for you later. So the programme will be available for all schools in the early rollout areas from this September, and then nationally from September 2021. Given the impact of school closures on ITT, the DFE is also exploring a wider rollout than just the 3 areas for 2020, but those decisions have not yet been made, and so we don't have any details about how that might work if you've got partner schools in other regions. So I'm now going to hand over to Linda.
Thank you. It's important for us to look at the practical aspects of the programme. Wearing my hat as a school induction tutor, I know the programme has to work for us whilst we're running a school and serving the pupils. The current situation with coronavirus obviously complicates matters. We will need to do things differently for this year's NQTs. More than ever, they will need our support and guidance. None of us want to be spending hours and hours in developing materials to fill in the gaps in trainees' knowledge. We need the research to be at our fingertips, and then we need to be able to spend time supporting and developing their classroom practice, which in turn supports and develops our pupils. So I'm now going to examine the framework from different viewpoints and look at how it addresses some of the challenges that Steph has mentioned earlier. So firstly, from the NQT's perspective, this is a national programme and it helps to enhance NQT's knowledge and guide them towards best practice. And it provides that all-important consistency. They will have support over the first 2 years of their careers, which they haven't had previously. The allocated time of 10% reduced timetable remains the same in year 1. There is additional time in year 2 of 5%. And remember, we said that this is a fully funded programme from the DFE. In year 2 of our programme, we move towards an inquiry model which allows the NQTs to embed good practice and increase their confidence and expertise. The early career framework will ensure that our NQTs benefit from training based on latest research, and it will give them greater support. So from a mentor's perspective, we have experienced mentors and those that are new to mentoring. I think the guidance supports both, and it provides consistency in our approach. We as mentors can feel confident that we're enhancing the knowledge of the trainees as well as deepening practical competence, both of which are vital. And that's because the research is embedded into the materials, which will support the mentors to put theory into practice and be able to highlight best practice in the classroom. Our programme has a logical and practical approach which acknowledges workload. Activities for trainees require them to apply new learning in their teaching role. And importantly, our programme requires the NQTs to complete an audit at the start of each module, which will help both the mentor and the NQT focus their time and energy on the areas where they are less confident. So the early career framework means that we will invest in our mentors and they will receive training and support. So what does this mean for our schools and school leaders? I think the points on the screen are fairly self-explanatory. It will help staff retention, so we will get a return on our investment, and that will benefit us from lower recruitment costs. There's an enhanced CPD for NQTs and mentors, which will have seepage into their departments and therefore the whole school, so we will all benefit from that. In terms of budget implications, well, time is money. This is a high quality programme which is available for you to use now and is free. So if you are thinking, why should I join the early rollout? Well, wearing my practitioner's hat, we are going to have to plug the gaps this year for the NQTs who've had their ITT cut short. The early career framework will give you what you need. And that last point on the slide is what we're all about. We have started with the end in mind. Activities for the trainees require them to apply new learning to their teaching, which means they will have a positive impact on pupils. We have been mindful throughout all of the materials of the impact on pupils and the impact on workload, and I think that is crucial. This quote from Becky Francis of the Education Endowment Foundation sums it up nicely. Something we're all conscious of, our primary aim is to improve teaching quality in order to improve pupil outcomes. Improving the training of our NQTs will help us to reach that goal. Teachers and leaders have been integral in the design of our programme. Throughout the development of the course, we've been testing materials with NQTs and mentors, the final users. And we're now going to hear from one of our school leaders who has been actively involved in this process.
My name is Joanne Moore. I'm head teacher at Sandhill View Academy, part of the Southmoor Multi-Academy Trust in Sunderland. We were delighted when the ECF was announced because we strongly believe that the early years of a teacher's career are the most crucial in terms of investment in professional development. And these materials represent robust research being used with fantastic professionals from universities around the country with classroom practitioners, an unstoppable combination in my view. We've enjoyed being part of the trial. The teachers who've been part of it, the mentors and the newly qualified teachers, have fed back to us in great detail, telling us that they really like the very accessible language. They really like the fact that all of the tasks are broken down into things that matter in their classrooms and that they show impact for children. We see this as very, very high quality evidence, very, very high quality impact, and it's ultimately going to form the basis of our school improvement plan for our new teachers for a number of years. In fact, we also think that most of our existing teachers will be learning a lot from materials, so it's also going to form part of the wider professional development of our staff. We think that classroom practice linked with robust evidence is a winning combination, and when all of that is channelled to absolute impact in the classroom, there's nothing to lose. And that's why we were keen to be part of this particular consortium with the UCL, because it was based from around the country with people who work each and every day in classrooms. And because I've been to some of the meetings where I've seen the writing teams, I know that there's been a huge amount of professional challenge, making sure that these resources mean something to people who work every day in classrooms. I would strongly urge any other professional to be involved with them because this is going to be very, very good quality impact. My name is Joanne Moore.
So we wanted to tell you a bit more about the consortium provision itself. The UCL Early Career Consortium is made up of 3 world-leading universities and a strong contingent of some of the best teaching and research schools in the north of England, if not nationally. It's a powerful combination of academics, teacher educators and teachers. You'll see from this slide the 3 universities and the school partnerships that we've formed. For any of you unfamiliar with NETSP, we are the North East Teaching Schools Partnership. We're an accredited provider of NPQs for the region, and the schools which make up the partnership are listed on this slide. I'm going to tell you a bit about the programme that we've developed. As the materials are still being approved by the DFE, we can't show you exemplars, but I can give you the main principles and an overview. You can see on your screen a summary of the features of the UCL programme. A big draw from my perspective is the fact that teachers and school leaders in our region and across the north of England have been an integral part in designing the programme. The practical application is rooted in the workplace. The knowledge base is not purely academic research, it's what our teachers and teacher educators know will be effective and manageable in the classroom. We've also been mindful, as Linda said, of the time commitment, not just of the early career teachers, but also the mentors. Our programme has also got a flexible approach. You can play to the strengths and areas for development of each early career teacher to give them the support that they need. At the beginning of each module, the early career teacher will conduct an audit against the teacher standards that are covered in that module. And this will enable them and their mentor to ensure that they cover the whole programme in such a way as to focus on their identified areas of need. It's an inquiry-based model, so that across both years, the ECT will investigate effective strategies and pedagogical principles and practice and embed them in their classrooms. And whilst I've emphasised the realistic and pragmatic approach, which will deepen the practical competence of your NQTs and their mentors, there is also the academic rigour, which will enhance knowledge around the early career framework content. All of this should have a positive impact on NQTs, on their mentors, and importantly, from your school's perspective, also pupil performance. As we said, we've started with the end in mind. I'd just like to say a quick thing about the last bullet on this slide. The early career framework is divided into two clear parts: the online materials, which schools are free to follow independently, and the additional enhanced face-to-face training offer for the early career teachers and mentors, which we will provide if you sign up with us. So if you choose not to sign up with a provider, you can still have access to the online materials, but not to the face-to-face training. We propose to run the face-to-face training in clusters around the region, so it will happen close to you. You can also sign up to host a cluster, and we will train facilitators from your schools to run the training. In the current circumstances, however, although we will still run the programme in clusters, we anticipate that this year it's likely to be online rather than face-to-face. It will still be facilitated, however. We know that schools are going to find it difficult to host face-to-face training and also difficult to release people from school during the school day, and we are designing our materials mindful of that situation. So you need to be sure that the programme that you're selecting in the early career framework is right for you, your school and your NQTs. We have engaged our partners in user testing to check how flexible and adaptable the programme is. Firstly, they were asked to consider whether the programme was suited to meet the needs of early career teachers with differing abilities. And the feedback comment you see on this slide is typical. The materials offer differentiated approaches and allow the mentor to guide the ECT at their pace. Secondly, the testers were asked to consider if it works for the different contexts our NQTs and mentors will be working in. And again, the feedback was very positive, that the materials were applicable and relevant regardless of the school setting. So this is an overview of how the curriculum works. There are 5 modules, as we said at the beginning of this presentation, and they are based on the teacher's standards, using the Learn That and Learn How To model from the framework. Both the early career teacher and the mentor have access to a summary of research around aspects of each of the standards, and then a range of practical tasks to develop classroom practice. We've written our programme around a set of guiding principles, central to which is the use of the spiral curriculum model. This supports teachers to revisit aspects of the early career framework over time as their conceptual and practical learning develops, such that they can both deepen and contextualise their understanding of the early career framework as they progress. In essence, this models the concept of interleaving and spaced learning, which teachers are encouraged to use with their pupils on a day-to-day basis. Year 2 of our programme takes an inquiry approach. Through inquiry, the early career teachers will revisit and deepen the technical knowledge embodied in the early career framework. They will strengthen their capacity for reflection on and inquiry into their practice as a foundation skill that will underpin their ongoing development throughout their teaching career. The sequencing of the programme in this way targets the specific capacities and needs of the early career teachers as they develop over time and is part of the flexibility of our programme. So this is an overview of how the module will look, as sort of a short extract of it really. Each module consists of blended training. An example over a half term on the screen shows the different elements involved in the structure we've adopted. The early career teacher will conduct some self-directed study, and that covers about an hour in a week. This relates directly to their teaching. Each session is consciously designed to be integral to the work they will be doing anyway, rather than being something extra or artificial. The self-directed study is then the focus of the following mentor meeting, during which they will review the work they've been doing over the last week and then focus on the reading and concepts addressed in the self-directed study. This is drawn from the work of Grossman and Pollard, in that it helps novice teachers to develop their professional practice through the use of breaking things down and modelling practice. Reflection on and inquiry into practice are woven throughout the programme in order that early career teachers become increasingly confident and competent in leading their own professional learning. Our user testers have had very, very positive feedback about this model. As I said previously, the use of a spiral curriculum model within the programme supports teachers to revisit aspects of the early career framework over time as their conceptual and practical learning develops. Now this slide gives you an overview of the professional learning for early career teachers and the time commitments. We don't need to spend lots of time studying it in detail now. You can reflect on it later because we will make this presentation available to you all. I just want to say that we're conscious of the current climate and the need to avoid teachers being out of school. As I said earlier, face-to-face training is the ideal, but we are designing the training so that these sessions can happen online and be accessed in flexible ways so that early career teachers will be able to access materials at a convenient time for them in the school day and not have a negative impact on pupils' learning. So as well as the weekly guided self-directed study and the in-school mentor support and challenge, the early career teachers will also participate in an annual conference, which as we say may well be online this year, a half-termly cluster training session, and a half-termly online professional learning community which they can access regularly throughout the school year. And you'll see in the black boxes the number of hours across the year that are allocated to that. That's part of the DFE's requirement. It should be common to all of the programmes available. Our partners have been crucial in the development of this programme. It's important for us to ensure that our programme is adaptable and works equally well in schools with different contexts. This quote from Chris Peacock, who's ensured that the materials have been trialled in a range of settings, shows the adaptability of the UCL Consortium programme. He says that having supported NQTs across a range of ages and settings, I truly believe that the UCL Early Career Teacher Consortium programme will have a significant impact on the development of both early career teachers and their mentors. The package can be adapted to meet the specific areas of need of individual NQTs and offers a range of CPD opportunities that schools can realistically manage. The two-year programme is grounded in research, presented in an easy-to-access format that avoids overburdening teachers at a crucial time in their careers, and of course their mentors, who are their key to their success. So I'll now hand over to Linda.
Thanks, Steph. And as you can see on the slide, we've looked at that same approach for mentors. A few of the questions that are popping up is about the time commitment from our mentors and our NQTs out of school. And this slide and the one previously that Steph showed gives you an indication of that. And as Steph said, that should be consistent across the providers. We are aware of that need to have our teachers in classrooms, so we don't want that to be a lot of time out of school. And as Steph said, under the current climate, we are going to have to look at different ways of doing that, and we have got an online platform that will help us to deliver those things. So here you can see equally our mentors will get training, and that will start with an annual course at the start of the year, and then half-termly they will get support on specific modules, and then there is the online community, learning community as well. So the access there for mentors throughout, they will get that training. Our mentors will also have access to all of the materials. So they will have the research background which underpins the theory and the practice. And it's important that mentors have that same access to the theory as the trainees. We know some of our mentors may have been trained themselves some time ago and may not be familiar with all of the latest research. The mentoring approach that we are using is non-judgmental, individualised and developmental. Coaching guidance is integral to support mentors in developing their trainees. So it will help mentors to break down and unpick the learning and then empower the trainees. We know the essential elements for teacher development are to learn from others, to use research, to practice their skills and to reflect. All of those elements are embedded into our programme. And as I mentioned earlier, our NQTs will complete an audit at the start of the module, which will help both the mentor and the NQT to focus on the support they need. So the programme can be tailored to the individual needs of the NQT. User testing has been integral to the development of our programme, and feedback from mentors has been very positive, as you can see from the quote on the next slide. We need NQTs to engage in the programme and not feel overwhelmed. They need to know that our materials are part of their daily working life and not an add-on. Steph.
So as we've said, schools have been at the forefront of our development of our materials, but also in testing them for quality and practicability. I'd like to introduce you to Ben Connor, who works at Carmel, who is going to tell you about the programme from the perspective of the mentor.
Hi, I'm Ben Connor. I teach history at Carmel College, which is an 11 to 18 school in Darlington. I'm also responsible for the mentoring and continued development of our early career teachers. Over the last year, I've been involved in writing some of the early career framework materials, and I wanted to share with you a mentor's perspective on some of the opportunities that this programme provides. Being a mentor on top of your existing teaching job does bring with it extra work, but also huge opportunities in terms of your development as a teacher and a leader. We've been very conscious of that when planning our materials and have made the support and training and development of our mentors one of the top priorities. With that in mind, this programme provides a set of mentor training materials and a carefully mapped out week-by-week route through the programme. The mentor training focuses on two things. Firstly, developing your skills as a mentor, and secondly, ensuring that you understand the content and the principles of the early career framework itself. The role of the mentor is grounded in the principles of the early career framework. So an example of this is the importance of effective modelling. In the mentor training, you'll explore modelled examples of what a good mentor does and help your mentee then find models of excellent practice that they can use in their own context. There's a really simple rhythm to each module. It starts with an audit, and then there are pairs of sessions, an opportunity for mentees to engage with the research, followed by a mentor meeting where you'll guide your mentee through how to put these principles into practice. Each session has guidance around possible activities, questions and strategies, but it's really important that it's flexible enough for you to focus on what's important to your mentee in your context. At the heart of our approach to mentoring is supporting the development of our early career teachers in a way that meets their individual needs and empowers them as reflective practitioners. The process of taking risks, making mistakes and learning without worrying about being judged against teacher standards is essential in our programme. The programme is a really exciting opportunity for new and existing mentors to develop themselves as expert teachers as well as skilled mentors and leaders.
So as we've said, we hope that it's clear how committed we are to developing and supporting our NQTs to be better teachers, with the end in mind, better supported teachers and better learning provision for our pupils. For you as schools, your first decision is to sign up for the Early Career Framework and to choose a provider. Don't forget there are 4 providers. And it's important to stress that the funding is contingent on you signing up. You won't automatically get the funding through being in the early rollout area. In signing up, you also have an exciting opportunity to trial the programme and feed back to us before it's released nationally. And we would really appreciate feedback from our partner schools, other than those that have been involved in writing it. We want to know how it works in different settings, so you can be part of a pilot in a sense. Details of how to register interest with the UCL Early Career Teacher Consortium via NETSP are on your slide, and they will also be sent out to you after the webinar. But they're also easily found on our website, or you can go directly to the UCL website. Remember, we will also send you a link to our presentation, and this will appear on our website. So we had some questions that were sent to us before, as you signed up to the program, to the webinar today, and I can see that quite a few questions have come in while we've been talking as well, which is partly why Ben got paused. I'm sorry about that. I didn't realise it would stop the presentation if I looked at the chat. So we do have time for some questions, and so I'm going to hand over to Linda, who's going to lead on that, and I'll chip in where appropriate.
Thanks, Steph. There have been a number of questions about how the programme will run and whether or not you will be running your own training programme parallel to that. And I do think that does depend on your circumstance. If you're a small school with one NQT and their mentor, then it does provide a very structured approach in those 5 modules to follow that through. However, you do need to be flexible. From my point of view, in a larger school, then I know there will still be some school-specific and trust-specific training that I will want to deliver. So the programme will run alongside and run parallel to the ECF as well as my own programme. So for example, it is set out in a really structured way and the order of delivery is very clear, so it will help you to plan your training. I could look at when we're looking at special educational needs, for example, and I would normally include in my programme a session with the SENCO. So I will run that concurrently. So it will dovetail those things together. So the flexibility is there, and it needs to be there because we're looking at different contexts. Steph, do you want to say anything about that?
No, I think you've covered that. Thank you.
Thank you. We've also had a question there about funding and who is eligible. I think we've tried to answer that as we've gone through, but essentially NQTs who are registered as NQTs in September this year will be eligible for this programme. They will then be eligible into year 2 for the
I'll just chip in there, Linda. I think it's important to make it clear that in order to access for our understanding of what the DFE's guidance is that in order to access the funding for the Early Career Framework, you do need to express an interest with one of the providers, and that the fact that you're in an early rollout area does not mean you will automatically get the funding in the early rollout year. But what it does mean is that you are all eligible for it and guaranteed it if you sign up with the provider. So you do need to sign up in order to access the funding. There isn't as yet full guidance on how you access the money. The DFE plans to make an announcement on that this term, and as soon as we know about that, obviously we will put that on our website. Sorry, Linda, I talked to Chris.
No, that's great. It's part of the information people need to know about that funding stream, and that's important to us. So the funding will be available, but we're not entirely sure. That we're waiting for more information from the DFE on that. But as we've said, if you have NQTs starting this September, they will be eligible for the programme. That's 1 year at the start is their normal NQT year, then rolling into year 2, which would be next September. So if a couple of people have asked, is it 2 years or is it rolling into 3 because it's added on? It is a 2-year programme now, with year 1 as their NQT year, rolling into year 2 as their RQT or early career trainee. We've also been asked about the role of appropriate bodies. they will still exist in this forum because, as Steph said, this programme is a developmental programme. It's about the training and investing in our NQTs in their early career. It is not about the assessment. So trainees will be assessed by the appropriate bodies in the same way that they have been previously. So our appropriate bodies will exist. Some of you will have had training offered previously or used training from your appropriate bodies. It is up to those appropriate bodies whether they will still provide that. As we say, this is an opt-in for the early career, for the early rollout. So not everybody will choose necessarily to opt in. So there will still be an overlap in this next year, and it is up to your appropriate bodies as to what level of training they want to still provide. Do you want to add anything to that, Steph?
No, I think that's pretty comprehensive, thank you.
Excellent. And I think just time for one last question. There is a couple of other little questions. They're quite individualised, and so we'll pick those out and we'll make sure that they are answered as frequently answered questions. So for example, I think, you know, we have reiterated all the way through the impact on workload and staff well-being. I think that is incredibly important. I think that is a feature of our course in particular, that we've made sure what the NQTs are doing as part of their self-directed study is what they would be doing in their normal working day. So for example, in planning your lesson, script out some questions that you would use. Look at how effectively they work, review those, then in the mentor session, review that with your mentor. Look at how well they worked and how you might improve those. That's just a very quick example, but that's what I'm trying to say is that we are looking at it's part and parcel of what they're doing on an everyday basis. And if we think about our NQTs previously, they've had 10% under allocation of timetable. That has always been so that we can direct their training and we can make sure that they get that training. So we're using that time, that 10% is still there, that the trainees can use that for the self-directed study. And we've always had a mentor session each week. So again, that will continue. So when we're thinking about workload, there isn't a massive increase in those week by week expectations. So if we just take one last question, which I think may sum up a few points. How does your programme differ from other providers? Steph, do you want to start us off just thinking about the NETSP side of things?
I think it's difficult to say how does it differ, because obviously we don't have access to the materials that have been provided by the other providers. I think one of the key things for us is that there's a real blend between the academic content that's been provided by the universities and the practical application that's been provided by the schools and the research schools. And so we really have been mindful of ensuring that our programme enriches a newly qualified teacher's understanding of the theory behind effective classroom practice, but that it is practicable, that it is possible to implement it. So we've written it in a way that ensures that bits can be covered less heavily if that's an area of expertise already. We've written it mindful of the fact that they have covered an ITT year already, and we appreciate that that's been shortened this year. But in general, this programme has been designed for people that have followed an ITT programme and therefore have a foundational knowledge, and this is about enriching it. So I think the partnership between the schools and the universities has been crucial, because we know that it's richly based on theory and academic rigour, but that it is practicable, that it can be used by people who have got a mad working day. And we've been really mindful of the mentors as well. We are working on a flexible mentoring approach that does not require huge amounts of learning the theory behind mentoring, and that does not require excessive amounts of extra reading for the mentor. We're really well aware of the burden of mentoring as well as the privilege, and that it's important that it's not excessive workload. So I'm not suggesting that the other programs are excessively heavy, because I don't know, obviously, but that has been absolutely central to the way in which we've written our programme. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
obviously, once we get to the point where we can release some materials, we will release some exemplar materials, but they're being fairly regularly delivered to the DFE for approval at the moment, and so we're not free to release them.
Yeah, thanks, Steph. And I think, as we've said, the audit that we've made sure that's embedded at the start of every module, we're making sure that we are looking at the individual needs of our NQTs. The Year 2 programme, moving to that inquiry model, which really means that our trainees become more independent and able to embed their skills. And I think most importantly, our training is not detached from the day-to-day job. They are learning on the job. They are engaging in the activities which are part and parcel of their daily work. So it does take into account workload of the trainees and of course the mentors as well. Steph, if you just want to give us a minute at the end just to tell us about the registering. I've got a couple of questions here that have asked about deadlines for registering interest. I don't know.
Yeah, at the moment there isn't a deadline for registering interest. You can go to our website, or as I say, you can go to the UCL website to sign up and express an interest. We need people to have done that by the end of this academic term, but actually I think if you were to sign up in the middle of August, you would still be allowed to engage in the programme. It's just from a planning point of view, it's better for us if we know by the end of this term how many clusters we need to provide for and how many how many NQTs and how many mentors we need to provide for, and to get the logistics up. So the earlier that you sign up, the better from our perspective. Once you have signed up, and this applies with all of the providers, once you have signed up and expressed an interest, you'll then be sent a school agreement form where you agree that having signed up with a particular organisation, you won't then be working with a different organisation instead. It's not a contract, you're not being held to it. It's for the DFE to have a clear idea of how many schools are going with each provider so that they can do some central planning. So you can sign up with us, you'll get information from us directly, you'll get an acknowledgement from us, and then as the training becomes sorted and as the dates become sorted and all of those sorts of things, we'll then keep you in touch via email, and there will also be details on our website as well.
Yeah, and just to clear up, we do need individual schools to sign up rather than a multi-academy trust, don't we?
Yes, we do, and it's not the role of the mentor to do that signing up. The person in school who's responsible for the early career development is the person that should be signing people up, and you sign up on behalf of the school, and you will then be asked to indicate at a later date, you'll be asked to indicate how many early career teachers that involves and how many mentors that involves, and we'll then provide the training as appropriate. I mean, it might well be that within a trust, 3 schools have got NQTs and the other schools haven't, so it does need to be on an individual school basis.
Excellent, thank you. And looking at the rollout of the programme, we have said obviously we're waiting for DFE to do the final approval, so we will share some of the resources as soon as we can. But the actual launch of the programme isn't till September. There's a couple of people asking whether or not we can release the mentor training earlier than that.
As far as I'm aware at the moment, no, we can't. But if that changes, then certainly we'll make sure people know.
Excellent. Thanks, Steph. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. As we said at the start, we will send out the PowerPoint, the presentation, to everybody. If you have any additional questions, then please forward them on to us. We're conscious of the time now. There's a couple of other questions on that feed, which I will address in terms of emails, if we can get those out to everybody as soon as possible. Steph?
Thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to hearing from you in future. And obviously, if you want to call NETSP, although we're all working remotely, we can arrange to have a proper conversation with you individually. If you'd rather do that than by email, just contact the NETSP office and we can set something up.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.